Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome to the demo for The Secret of Weepstone by Talesworth Games Studio and Dread XP. The former of which hasn't really done a whole lot just yet, but the latter of which is probably best known for doing unconventional horror, mostly outside my wheelhouse, but at least a couple of which I have previously had on my radar, Sucker for Love in particular. But with The Secret of Weepstone, they have now officially entered the arena of the old-school CRPG, which puts them squarely in my sights. And I've got to say, as far as CRPGs go, old school or otherwise, this one is right in my wheelhouse. I was a long-time dungeon master, and I cut my teeth on the original Dungeons & Dragons basic boxed set. I essentially grew up on Quest for the Unknown and the Caves of Chaos, with a little Isle of Dread on the side, the sinister secret of Saltmarsh, against the cult of the reptile god. So yes, although my tastes have evolved over the years in both matters of tabletop and CRPGs, I still have a pretty big soft spot when it comes to old-school adventure modules, or just the simpler days of OD&D in general, when adventurers were a dime a dozen, as opposed to immortal anime archetypes. But I digress. Suffice to say, while Secrets of Weepstone is probably a game that won't appeal to everyone, it's definitely a game that feels like it's aimed right at someone like me. That said, let's jump right in. You'll see what I mean pretty quick. The Secrets of Weepstone. Here we go.
Nestled in the shadow of its imposing, now abandoned keep, sits the dwindling riverside village of Weepstone. But things were not always so. For in times gone by, a man from the east, known only as Ral, grew to power, waging a relentless campaign westward. After crossing the mountains into the kingdom of Talesworth, he established his seat of power and constructed a stronghold from which to oversee his lands. He called this stronghold Weepstone Keep. Many wondered what compelled this mysterious and seemingly unstoppable warrior to end his bloody campaign in this place. But the years were good to Weepstone and its people, their harvests unfailingly robust, and their industries the envy of neighbors both near and far. However, Ral would not live forever, and upon his death, his lands passed to his eldest son, Byron, and thus began the troubled times. Long past are the seasons of plenty for Weepstone and its people, whose fields now sit barren, the people forsaken by the good fortunes they once took for granted. To the astonishment of many, Byron abandoned Weepstone Keep for a modest manor on a hill near the town, and forbade anyone to return to its halls. Now the town barely survives, mostly as an unwelcome stop along a trade route used by merchants too impatient to travel the hospitable roads of the south. Only the trapped or the desperate continue to call this bleak place their home. Our story begins here, on a night of ill omen, as the people of Weepstone have been called to the tavern for reasons unknown.
Good people of Weepstone, I've summoned you here to discuss a matter of grave importance. My brother and your lord, Byron, has fallen ill.
Oh, right.
He is rarely conscious. His nights are fraught with fevered dreams and terrible nightmares. The healers know not what ails him. In his half-waking state, he mumbles incoherently of Weepstone Keep, the castle that our father built, our childhood home. I can only hope that it is there where answers may lie. Are there any among you willing to delve into that forsaken place to find the source of Byron's torment? I will not lie. There is undoubtedly great danger waiting for any who venture there, in the form of both man and beast. While the keep and its contents have been forbidden since our exile, I hereby decree that any brave enough to take on this task may enter, explore, and importantly, keep what they may find within its walls. Who among you will take up this duty? I need 6 volunteers. Please, I would rather not have my hand forced to choose.
And here we go, with our motley crew of would-be adventurers, finding adventure thrust upon them rather than seeking it out themselves. And, well, I will say, you know, obviously, it's a bit of a point of contention that you can't make your own character. I actually kind of like it in this case, because a classic element of a lot of those old-school modules was that each module tended to come with a set of inherently flawed pre-gens in the back of the book. And that's essentially what we've got here. Sadly, we only have access to 6 of the characters in the current demo, so they've essentially pre-selected our party, but let's go through them all anyway, because I do find it pretty fascinating. Starting with Ebba Exsellsior, Stable Hand. Ebba is beloved by all who know her, and in the minds of many could do no wrong. That was until she fed spoiled oats to Lord Byron's favorite mare, killing the beast, and losing her job as a stable hand. Caelan Quinn, musician. Once known as the Songbird of Trent, Caelan's promising career as a bard was tragically derailed when she shattered her fretting hand in a bar fight and was forced to resentfully seek out less discerning audiences. Dalton Cockburns, blacksmith. Dalton was born in Weepstone and has never once set foot more than a league from the town. Since childhood, he's rambled to anyone who would listen about the coming doom that haunts his dreams. I like that guy. Elton Winslow, carpenter. Elton is the best carpenter for leagues around and truly, deeply hates carpentry. That may be why he's known to have a strong personality, but he's young even for a dwarf, so it's hard to tell. Ewan Ablethorn, merchant. Ewan is a merchant of clearly good breeding and remarkably successful. The most confusing thing about him is why he chooses to remain in Weepstone, the answer to which he alone knows. Ray Wyatt, blacksmith. Ray is a middle-aged dwarven blacksmith, exiled from the capital city of Talesworth for crafting items forbidden by the Guild of Artificers. When asked about his peg leg, the story changes every time. Another one I like, and thankfully this one we can actually recruit. Also note that his future class is simply Dwarf, which again is a nod to classic basic D&D. Back in the day, they essentially treated the Tolkien-esque races, dwarves, elves, and halflings, as a class of their own, essentially multi-classes, mixing the basic classes together.
I said I would stick to plows and horseshoes. But I still know how to swing a hammer. I'll go.
Welcome aboard, Ray. Let's see who else we've got. Nixon Webb, baker. Nixon is an elf and a baker in name only, as her shop was burned to the ground by a spurned lover. She's been trying everything she can to raise the funds to rebuild. Unsuccessfully, so far. Egbert Graham, cook. Egbert once served as the cook for Lord Byron's father at Weepstone Keep. He loves only 2 things, his wife Della and a perfectly cooked meal. Though mostly retired, he's been known to dust off his knives for a feast day. And then, of course, his wife, Della Graham, housekeeper. In her youth, Della was a housekeeper for Lord Byron's father, Raoul, at Weepstone Keep. She now spends her time gardening with her husband, Egbert, and is known affectionately as Ma Della to the children of the town.
I'm always one to lend a hand, but I'll have to see what Della thinks about it.
We know the keep better than most, Egbert. It's only right we try to help.
And see, that, of course, is another thing that kind of sells me on the whole concept of using pre-gens. I'm really hoping these characters all have their own actual personalities and backstories. In this particular case, you kind of catch a glimpse of that because you can't recruit Della or Egbert individually. They always come as a pair. In the current demo, I don't think they actually express much personality beyond just this initial recruitment phase. But I really do hope we see them a bit more fleshed out once we hit full launch.
I'll go. I'm not as young as I once was, but maybe my years at the keep will be of some help.
Where you go, I go. I love. You know that.
Aw, you two are sweet. I'm gonna feel very bad when I get one or both of you killed. Tatum Harlow, the village idiot. It would be easy to write Tatum off as a moron if it weren't for the fact that occasionally he's shockingly smart. However, the townsfolk have generally decided that every village needs an idiot. And sometimes they volunteer. Indeed.
Okay. What's the key?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Tugger Barnes. Town drunk. Tugger Barnes looks rough for whatever age he actually is, and depending on the time of day, only half sober at best. But Tugger will tell you that any day now he's got a plan to turn it around. Starla Beverly. Zealot. Starla has known the day that she would die since she was a child. At least that's what her cultist parents taught her. She ran away to avoid being their ritual sacrifice. And maybe avoid her fate.
It is beyond me to make this choice. This path has already been chosen for me.
That is absolutely true. The Kid. Street urchin. No one's sure where the Kid is from. He's never spoken a word to anyone. Only those new to town would be unwise enough to leave anything valuable unattended when he's nearby. And that makes 6. And thus, the party is assembled. No mighty wizards or warriors here. Instead, an urchin, a zealot, an idiot, a retired couple, and a one-legged blacksmith. They'll simply have to hope that it's enough. Though even if not, there's always other unfortunate souls to meet out on the road that might be press-ganged to further their efforts.
And so the unlikely party set out for the keep, arriving at the gates just as the evening light began to fail.
Oh, man, I love the dedication to that adventure module aesthetic. A lot of fun details if you pause on that screen, too. Well, that's certainly a good sign. And here we go. Pretty straightforward dungeon crawl mechanics. We've got free movement until we encounter something that we either have to fight or otherwise interact with. The black and white art choice I do like, but I will also say can be a bit hard on the eyes. Hopefully they'll have some palette options by the time the game hits launch. And then as far as our party goes, anyone who's played D&D, even if you haven't played First Edition, you should generally have an idea of what's going on here. These are the very basic concepts that ultimately shaped D&D. And of course, they also started us off at level 0, which I also do really love. Low-level adventuring was always the sort of fantasy adventuring I liked to run the most, before magic sort of trivialized everything. I mean, even magic couldn't save you from everything back in the day, but it definitely took the bite out of a lot of potential consequences. Though it also always meant that some poor sap had to be stuck playing the party healer. It's interesting because there were some settings where they really tried to sort of tamp down on that. Dragonlance or Dark Sun in particular, where magic healing was just an extreme rarity. Anyway, let's get back to adventuring, shall we?
One can only assume the formidable visage on this statue is Rahl himself. The left hand holds a small shield, while the right hand holds a lion-headed scepter.
Well, I mean, that feels pretty obvious.
The arm seems to be designed to act as a lever and is already in the down position.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just leave her alone.
The arm seems to be...
Methinks there's something else lying around that caught our eye. Lion Scepter. A metal scepter that calls to mind the Rahl family crest. It looks like it belongs to something. You don't say. Well, that's a switch.
One can only assume the formidable visage on...
Oh, and search for traps. Not something any of us are really trained in, but Della does have a slightly higher than average wisdom, so she's our best bet. You know, back in classic D&D, they didn't really have a full-fledged skill system. It was just roll equal to or under an appropriate stat, modified as the dungeon master saw fit. Which I do think this kind of tries to abstract, albeit in percentile form. Cleverly concealed within the mechanism is a needle trap, waiting to prick the careless. It is now safely disarmed. Hang on, look at that. Detected and disarmed in a single roll? What a generous dungeon master.
The scepter snaps into place with a satisfying click.
Which nets us a small healing potion. A small vial filled with a crimson liquid, faintly glowing. When consumed, it restores 1d6 hit points. Nice. Off to a good start. Things are looking up for our band of erstwhile adventurers. Surely, things will only get better from here. Also, that's a picture of a rust monster on page 1. That's probably fine. And of course, the whole lever puzzle thing, pretty straightforward, pretty obvious, but also a classic staple of many a fantasy adventure. Heck, last time I actually played D&D, I think, it was a few years back, but I think it also had a statue lever puzzle. You had to find a sword to put in its hand and then move the arm the right way, with different arm positions triggering different results.
Spartan beds and matching foot chests hint at this room's use as a barrack of some kind. The ravages of looters and time have been unkind, leaving it in shambles. A makeshift structure built from bed frames dominates the rear of the chamber.
I love that they, it's a small detail, but I love that they include the room number in the description text block. And hey, look at that. Free Morning Star. A brutal spiked club used both to bludgeon and stick. Basic 1d6 bludgeoning weapon, but certainly superior to what we've got. Here you go, Ray. Let's pull that blacksmith's hammer and see what else we're working with here. Oh yeah, look at that. Actually, you know what? You're our blacksmith, so hold on to that. We'll toss the Morning Star to Tatum. And then I can't imagine anyone has something worse than a rusty dagger. Well, I mean, you've got a teddy bear, which is actually somehow better. Better than, like, most of our weapons, honestly. Wow, the kid. You scare me. Oh, and look at that. Rusty spear. Lovely. We'll actually toss that to the kid. You need reach or range weapons to attack from the back row. And whilst certainly savage, A teddy bear is neither. Though, you know what? We will toss that to Tatum. And then cycle that Morningstar back over to Ray. Now we've got 1d6 weapons on all of our frontliners. Also a sling. Very nice. Ranged weapons use dex, so we should probably toss the 2 slings to our 2 highest dex backliners. Which does seem like it would be Egbert and the kid. So I guess Della actually gets our spear. Not that she'll be very good at handling it, but long term she's meant to be a cleric, not a warrior. Though sadly the current demo doesn't actually go far enough to let you hit that first precious level up. So alas, we got no class. Just gotta make do as is. Alright, let's see what else we can find around here. Empty? Though we do have this distinctive set of upended tables here.
The sound of small boots disturbs the quiet of the room as small figures burst forth from the haphazard barricade. They brandish crude weapons and seem particularly intent on defending their hideout.
And that would be why. We've got some OG goblins. Man, look at that. That is very 70s, 80s fantasy pulp. And we got them on initiative. Fantastic. I will say, this is possibly both one of the more authentic but also weaker spots in the game. They do adhere pretty closely to the classic OD&D sort of combat system. They mix it up here and there, but it is probably still a bit too simplistic by most modern standards. Though again, it does really help with the aesthetic because, you know, it does show a commitment to the bit. Nice. Ray surges forward, eyes seething at the sight of the lowly goblins before him. His morning star strikes true, the first foe folding 'neath his fury. Tatum follows shortly behind, the weighted teddy bear whirling awkwardly in his grip. And yet still it strikes, perhaps mistaken for some harmless toy or novelty. The lead-lined limbs deliver another goblin to its grisly fate. Starla streaks in next, heirloom blade lowered, striking like a comet. Piercing a third goblin through. Meanwhile, the kid lurks behind the battle line. Head low, sling swirling in almost lazy motions. A goblin grunting as a stone glances from its scalp. Della lunging in right afterwards, but her awkward strike fails to find purchase. And Egbert brings up the rear, his own stone likewise flying wide. Half their number already humbled. The remaining goblins strike back. And utterly fail in the attempt. Perhaps rattled by the recent loss. Ray quickly capitalizes, the dwarven blacksmith surging forward. A glancing blow, but still, a heavy bruise blossoms. With Tatum swiftly following through, bearing another foe to the ground. And then Starla spontaneously found herself in possession of a magic scroll. How strangely convenient. Which, honestly, I'd rather save, but, I mean, they're kind of forcing our hand here, so why not? The party gops as sudden light streaks from Starla's fingers, tearing through the last remaining figure, sending it toppling to the ground. And the party stands victorious, swiftly rolling the bodies and collecting their gold. Though I will say, if this were, in fact, old school D&D, we'd also be stripping the bodies of every other thing they were carrying. So that is a very distinct point of divergence. Granted, probably mostly rusted junk, but could have used those shields.
A grinding noise, followed by the sound of metal scraping on stone, echoes from deep within the keep.
I'm sure that's fine. +1 dagger. Again, very generous DM. In fact, you know what? I mean, I kind of like hitting people with the bear, but while the average damage would be the same, the +1 dagger would also enjoy an extra +1 to hit. So it is still an inherent upgrade. And alas, no dual wielding, but I'm sure we'll find some shields around here somewhere. Or perhaps a nice two-hander. Or, you know, pretty much anything else that might help keep us alive.
This door is wedged shut by the damp and refuses to open, despite your best efforts. Your weapons and inexperience do little to harm the stout door.
Right. Maybe if we had a proper axe and or levels under our belt. But for now, I am not liking our chances there. At best, we've got a 1 in 4. So we'll hold off on that for now.
A foul odor pervades this place. A smell so heinous it is beyond description. A sitting board runs the length of the far wall with 3 openings. Despite the buzzing flies, you hear the faintest sound of rushing water that seems to be coming from the farthest hole.
Ah, latrines. Nice. Got to appreciate a module that takes basic dungeon ecology into account. Really helps with immersion.
Peering into the opening shows a drop that leads out of sight and into absolute darkness, farther than any sane person would attempt to climb, unless, of course, they wished for certain death. You hear the sound of rushing water coming from below.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's definitely a river or something. Good way to dispose of your waste. Not a great place to send your adventurers. I think we'll hold off on climbing down there, lest we suffer the same fate as Cade Goodbarrel, hapless halfling sorcerer from my old 3rd edition D&D campaign. He was oh so sure he could keep his head above water, right up until he couldn't.
As you approach the middle latrine, you are blasted by an odor beyond words. You have no choice but to back away.
I mean, like a saving throw or something would be nice, but fair enough.
Your guts roil. Your eyes water. Whatever faith you have is tested by the putrid fumes that waft from this unholy maw. Shockingly, the latrine is not only quite full, but its contents are surprisingly fresh. A glint of gold sits just out of reach, atop the muck.
Well, shit. Any monsters down there? No, I'd say that sounds pretty clear. Alright, I guess we're doing this.
You sift blindly through horrors within, and to your surprise, you retrieve what feels like a ring. You emerge from the hole, smelling foul and feeling quite ill. Let us see if you are poisoned. Let's just say that you're poisoned.
I mean, sure, why not? Hey, if you're going to give me a Ring of Regeneration at level 0, I'm not going to complain. Even if it is a whole lot tamer than an actual Ring of Regeneration. Sort of. I mean, I guess... like, classically, a Ring of Regeneration would have restored 1 health every 10 minutes. Which in a game like this, I suppose, wouldn't really amount to all that much, given that you are moving around in real time. So technically, I guess 1d4 per fight would actually be more than you'd get, using the standard 1 hit point per turn system. Though I suppose it also really came down to which exact edition of D&D you were playing, because time measurements got weird. It's been a long while, but I want to say it was 10 seconds per round back in Basic. But then AD&D inexplicably upped it to like a minute per combat round, which was insane. As opposed to the modern 6-second standard, which I want to say was introduced in late 2nd or early 3rd. That way 10 combat rounds equaled 1 minute, with, I think, minutes then becoming turns, as opposed to 10 minutes.
This door is locked and won't budge. You hear a soft chittering, followed by the clatter of metal on stone.
Yeah, that's probably fine. So, looking for a key.
The large forge at the center of this room seems long dormant, but the smell of coke and coal still permeates every inch. Crates, barrels, and scattered ashes are scant reminders that this was once the beating heart of the keep.
Interactive forge implies we're supposed to smelt something?
You lean in, lighting the forge with your torch. It is indeed lit, but only just.
That's fine. That's what the bellows is for. But there's no point in firing it up until we know what we're supposed to actually put in there. Oh, there we go. Steel ingot. A dense rectangular bar of refined steel, ready for forging into weapons, armor, or tools. Neat. All right, Ray, this is your area of expertise. We're just following your lead.
The forge begins heating up as you pump the bellows, but the embers remain quite cold. As more air pumps into the forge, you begin feeling some heat. The forge is as hot as it's going to get. The heat feels good in this cold, forgotten place.
Oh, right, yeah.
As the steel ingot melts, The molten steel flows into the indentation and drains out through a hole. You seem to be missing something.
Yeah, we need a casting mold. Fair enough.
A filthy, disheveled man holding a knife cowers in the corner while eyeing you cautiously. Makeshift bedding and various personal effects lie in disarray. The smell is pungent.
What are you lot doing in here?
Hail, friend. We might ask you the same thing.
Well, it's been raining of late. Old Creek needed to get me head dry.
Then why not seek shelter in town? It's just down the way.
I'm not welcome in town as such, on account of my, dark past.
We've all got pasts, friend. Some darker than others. What is it about yours that you think is so bad?
My shame is too great. What can I say? But I've been exiled near on 20 years now. All alone in this world.
Well, whatever your reasons, you shouldn't be here alone. The place is overrun with goblins. Perhaps you'd like to help us clear them out? We get another sword arm, you get a safer place to rest your head.
Sure. If you'll, have Old Creek.
I will, but not if you ever make that expression again. And there we go, bonus recruit. Krig, the level 0 exile. Though, you know, perhaps one that might come with some slight complications in the full game. Again, I'd like them all to have their own unique pros and cons and potential plot twists. And Krig here certainly does seem like he's a bit of a loaded die. Fairly solid stats, but also clearly with some sort of dark and sordid past. Which actually also kind of leaves us in an awkward spot party-wise, because now we don't have enough reach and range weapons for our back line. But we'll keep an eye out. Hopefully we'll find something before too much longer. We can actually kind of make out an area above us. Not sure we can actually get there in the demo, though. Oh, yes, and then there's our basic formation tutorial. Which, of course, we already know how to do.
The smith's quarters are Spartan and humble, but must have once been a comfortable respite from the heat and ringing of the forge after a long day's labors.
There's our mold. A small hardened clay mold, carefully shaped to cast a metal key. That is just what we're looking for. Also a lore object. Smithy's note.
Oh, I'm a daft, blasted idiot. I just can't seem to keep my head on straight anymore these days. 1. Forge the armory key for the 3rd time this year. 2. Finish up Larona's set of fancy daggers. 3. Ask the apothecary about these blasted nightmares.
Indeed. All good signs. Ooh. And a +1 blacksmith's hammer. Much more impressive than the one that Ray brought with, which was inexplicably 1d4 damage rather than base 1d6. But, you know, I suppose it's not the size that counts, it's how you use it, etc. Alright, let's smelt ourselves a key. Mold first, otherwise the steel has nowhere to go. And grab a fresh bar. Into the pot. And then hit the bellows. Oh, or not.
As the ingot begins to melt, the steel slowly oozes into the mold. After a few minutes, the newly forged key is just barely cool enough to handle.
Nice. Armory key, a small key forged of steel. And we've got a pretty good idea of where the armory is. Also, that there is something in it, but let's give it a quick peek. Yeah, that's back towards the entrance.
This door is locked and won't budge.
Oh no, what'll we do? Oh, right.
Your entrance startles the large, scuttling creature that seems to have been nibbling on what remains of an axe blade. It rears up in surprise, emitting an eerie, chittering noise.
Oh my. Hey, got him on initiative. Nice. And you know, I guess if there was anywhere we were going to encounter a rust monster, this would definitely be the most sensible place, even if I do perhaps question exactly how it got in here. Ah, rust monster. Classic DM grudge monster. Kind of funny to encounter one at level 0 before we really have much in the way of gear we're afraid to lose. Hey, there we go. Craig immediately earning his keep.
The earthy smell of rusting metal and leather gone to rot fill this chamber that clearly once served as an armory. Mouldering armor and rusting weapons sit in chaotic piles, strewn without care and long forgotten. These weapons have been corroded beyond use by the Iron Belly's fetid bile.
Yeah, figures. What about this? Hey, salvageable shield. A modest +1 to armor class. Actually, let's toss that to someone slightly more fragile. Ray's already pretty tough. You know, relatively speaking.
A grinding noise, followed by the sound of metal scraping on stone, echoes from deep within the keep.
Sure. Extra Morning Star. Don't really need it, but we'll take it. Extra shield, which we absolutely do need. And extra spear, which, yes, I think we also need. Right. Yeah, let me do some quick rearranging here. There we go. Now everyone can contribute in combat. Anything else? Nope, I think we're good. We've cleared this whole lower area, so I guess we're headed back west again. Corridor clear.
This stately but smaller hall seems to have served as a gallery of sorts. Crumbled detritus of carved busts and toppled plinths lie in shambles across the floor. The only remnants that hint at the original grandeur of this place are the large tapestries that still hang on the opposing walls, dominating the space.
Well, that's certainly not ominous.
Depicted in the mural that spans the length of this side of the hall is the silhouette of a man standing in front of what looks like a calm pool of water. Though at first it appears to be merely a pool in a cavern, the exacting geometric carvings that decorate the hewn stone walls are of unsettling design.
Interesting. So the old founded their town on top of their source of power sort of plot device. Very Darkest Dungeon, though also the focus of many a classic adventure.
Before you spans a great mural dominating the entire stretch of wall. A man, most likely Ral himself, sits astride his great warhorse. He brandishes an outstretched sword at the body of a fallen foe, flanked by his imposing host.
Right, so a warmonger in life. It would take something truly tantalizing to tempt someone like that to settle down. The sort of promise that comes with a big old catch. Courtyard.
This door is not locked, but it refuses all attempts to open it. No discernible sounds come from beyond the door. You attack the door, but fail to cause any significant damage.
Huh. No real options on that one. Might just be beyond the scope of the current demo, or perhaps accessible from behind. Let's go crack the strength door. I didn't crack that one during my test run because there's no save in the current demo, so beating myself to death against doors felt like a bad idea.
This door is wedged shut.
But I am curious. All right, Craig. Come on, bud. You got this. Oof. Nope, he does not got this. Try again. Okay, you know what? Maybe stop trying. Ray, you want to maybe give this a shot? Hey, there we go.
Though humble, these quarters were clearly reserved for a captain or leader of the keep's guard. The contents of this room appear mostly untouched over the years, as various papers and a book sit undisturbed upon a wooden desk.
Captain of the guard, you say? Well, that sounds like someone who would have a very fine weapon.
My thoughts of late are greatly troubled, and my faith in our Lord falters. That priestess, Lerona, and her jealously guarded activities beneath the keep bring me great concern. If the captain of his Lord's guard is not permitted to venture below to the Undercroft, one can only imagine why.
Second name drop for Laronia. The smith was making a fancy dagger for her. And a scroll of lightning. A very weak one, too. 1d4 damage. That's even less than our magic missile. I mean, I've got to say, slightly disappointed, but I guess I'll take it. Sometimes, you know, sometimes an automatic 1d4 damage is what you need. Or possibly half on save. Didn't really specify. Okay, let's hit the courtyard. Sadly, no sign of how to open that other door, but again, that might just be beyond the scope of the current demo. I do notice it's shaded in. That does set it apart from all the other doors.
A large, barren courtyard opens before you, complete with mature trees and cobblestone walkways. As you cross the threshold, a sprinkling of pebbles and dust rain down from above. From atop the towering walls surrounding the courtyard, a group of screeching kobolds vault the parapets and descend upon you.
Oh man, now that is a real throwback. That's the OG kobolds back before Wizards of the Coast turned them into dragonlings? I'm still unclear on exactly what they're supposed to be now. Hey, nice. We went on ties. Though I will say, you know, more granular initiative certainly wouldn't be amiss. I wouldn't mind an actual full-fledged initiative track. Ray stands agape, caught off guard by the sudden ambush. But Tatum lunges past, dagger digging deep. And the first kobold falls. A second swiftly following, as Starling slashes its throat. A third staggered, run through by Krigg's spear.
No.
And yet it still stubbornly clings to life. Awkwardly hurled stones pattering about its desperately dodging form. Until one well-placed projectile strikes it right between the eyes, sending it careening to the ground. Though the adventurers themselves do not escape unscathed. Starling struck by an errant projectile in turn, a bloody gash carved across her scalp. Ray finally regains his wits, rushing in. A glancing strike, a horn cracked from a kobold's head. With Tatum swinging in right after. Blade plunging through the beast, dashing it bloody against the wall. The last turns to run, but as it does, the adventurers bear down on it.
No.
With Egbert soundly cranking it across the back of the head. And thus our party lives to see another day. Even if some are slightly worse for wear. Starla falling back, briefly lending her blade to Craig, to instead favor a spear that keeps her slightly safer from immediate harm. Actually, no. Craig takes one of the party's many morning stars. Starla does believe she's fated to die. Probably best not to hand off the one weapon destined to do it to someone like Craig. Though she will at least lend him her shield. Three doors. Nothing else really catching my eye.
Despite your best efforts, the door refuses to budge.
Right. How about this one?
Despite your best efforts, the door refuses to...
Okay, so I think it's fair to say, based on the lack of real options there, that does kind of mark those doors as beyond the bounds of the current demo. With that being our boss fight.
You there? Who are you that dares enter this sacred place?
We might ask you the same. We were told this place was off limits to outsiders, though we at least have received permission.
I find your hubris amusing. I would see you clearer. Come closer. Now. It would be rude to not introduce myself to guests. I am Laronia, the ever-faithful. You say you've come on behalf of Byron. How does he fare? Still a craven, I presume?
I mean, I didn't say that, but I suppose it is a logical leap to make. You speak as if you know him. Funny, he didn't mention you.
I know him well, as he does me. I don't know that he speaks of me often, though.
Yeah, can't say he ever did. Though the captain of the guard certainly seemed to have some thoughts.
I am untroubled by what fools do not know, but they make such bad company. Time to remedy that.
And here we go. With a clitter-clatter of brittle bones, a trio of skelemen take shape and promptly attack. Della out for 2 rounds. Thankfully, our least effective combatant, so, no huge loss. Caught off guard, a shard of rusted steel scrapes across Tatum's chest, glancing off ribs, but scoring the flesh. A second swing goes wide, but the third strikes home, Krieg uttering a sharp yelp. But the brittle blade snaps before piercing his stained tunic. Ray leads the countercharge. A devastating strike. The first of their skeletal foes, shattered and scattered asunder. Tatum has less luck, still distracted as he is by his shallow but painful wound. Krieg, though. Krieg seizes a bony wrist, twisting it away and shattering the skull beyond. Starla jabs with her spear, but the pain of her wounds is too great. And Della stands rigid, frozen by foul magics. Egbert and the kid rain stones, targeting the caster beyond the bony bodyguard. With one thumping into her cleverly concealed chain. The skeleton lunges once more, blow turned aside by Krieg's upraised shield. Ray coming in from the side, catching it overextended, and smashing it apart. The undead thusly dispatched, only their malevolent master remains. Tatum stepping in, jabbing with his dagger, piercing deep betwixt the links of her now bloodied chain. Krieg, however, finds himself warded away. Starla coming in right behind. A lighter but still painful blow. The mad cleric teeters. Stones once again cascading round her form. Body battered, but not yet broken. As she doles out one last wrathful strike in return, Ray caught off guards. Skull split asunder as the stout dwarf falls. Oh man, dying right at the finish line. That's classic D&D for you. Adventurers, like I said, dime a dozen. But at least he went out swinging. And as it states here, of course, death is not completely the end. While life is cheap in the world of Weepstone, some peculiar magic deep beneath the keep does also twist death into its own form of reward, which in this case takes the form of Last Stand. As the hardy Ray dies, those around him feel their own constitution and brawn buoyed by their lost companion's considerable fortitude. Protection from the next 3 otherwise fatal blows in combat. A bittersweet reward, considering this is our final fight. And incensed by his dwarven friend's death, Tatum bore down against the dagger already buried in Loranya's chest, and her black heart was pierced. Rest in peace, Ray.
I must have misinterpreted the omens. Today, he calls for me. It matters not. I am only a servant in his grand designs. It has already begun.
And with that, the spark of life fades from the mad priestess, leaving behind naught but a dead-eyed rictus.
And thus, our adventure comes to an end. At least for now. With a promise of more just beyond the horizon. At least for those who are willing to play for keeps. And I will note that apparently this demo is not really much of a spoiler. While it does, of course, use some assets from the final game, they apparently remixed it so that it wouldn't be identical to how the actual opening of the main game plays out. Which I am very much looking forward to. Though I will say, despite the fact that I personally definitely love this, a lot of that is admittedly driven by nostalgia, the fact that I love classic D&D. But for a lot of folks, especially these days, the rule set might feel too simple and sadistic, which I would definitely get. I mean, it's a fair response. There's not really a lot of strategy in those fights. You're largely beholden to the RNG beyond simply arranging and equipping your party and then hoping for the best. At least not until you gain access to actual magic. Get your guys up to level 1, add some clerics and magic users to the mix. But I will say, as random and senseless as Ray's death might have been, though perhaps cinematically appropriate given exactly when it happened, I will say that I appreciate the fact that they tried to make his death more meaningful by adding in that, what did they call it? The mortal favor? I do find that to be an interesting mechanic, one that makes swallowing the senseless death that comes with classic D&D slightly easier to swallow. And of course I assume it has some narrative purpose as well, some sort of ties to that sinister pool deep beneath Weepstone Keep. But I suppose we'll have to wait for the full campaign to know for sure. That said, hopefully you enjoyed. Goodness knows I certainly did. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And of course, go check it out yourself if it looks like something you might at all be remotely interested in. Demo should still be available as of the moment I'm recording this. Though sadly, I don't think full launch is slated till next year. And of course, if this is a game that you might like to see me revisit once it's a bit further along, feel free to let me know that in the comments down below as well. I mean, honestly, this is a game I'll definitely be playing regardless, even if just for myself, but who knows? If there's enough interest. Perhaps I'll see you then.